John's computer. Go ahead.
Okay, as the chair of this meeting, I need to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. School committee members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Elizabeth Alboda?
Yes.
Mary Branley?
Yes.
Natasha Rivera?
Yes.
And Mara Hogan?
Yes.
Sorry. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Colleen Andrade?
Yes.
Jeff Ferrante? No. Charles Gabron?
Yes.
Brian Haas?
Yes.
And Wayne White? Just joined. I see Wayne. So, this open meeting of the Maynard School Committee is being conducted remotely as allowed by the act Governor Baker signed into law on July 16, 2022, extending certain pandemic-related policy measures. This bill authorized the continuation of remote meetings and public access under the open meeting law and other remote meeting provisions until March 31st, 2023. This committee is convening by Zoom as posted on the district's website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Accordingly, be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording, which is audible and viewable to the public. Additionally, please use the raise your hand function to let the chair know if you are planning to record or broadcast this meeting. Most of the supporting materials that have been provided for the members of this body are available on the Maynard Public Schools website in a folder titled 2022-2023 Agendas. Under the tab Agendas, under the tab School Committee, the public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda and documents unless the chair notes otherwise. Any citizen wishing to make a comment to be read during a virtual meeting and entered into the public record may do so by emailing comments to comments4scmeeting@maynard.k12.ma.us. Comments need to be emailed in advance and will be received up until the public comments agenda item is addressed. Please include public comment in the subject line and your full name and street address in the body of your email. Emails without this information cannot be read. Statements longer than 350 words may be cut short at the 3-minute mark to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to be heard, but will be submitted in their entirety for the public record. The chair will read only one statement from each individual. However, additional comments may be submitted for the public record by providing a copy to the chair via email up until the end of the meeting, explicitly stating their desire to have these additional comments included in the public record. Please be aware that the purpose of the public comments period is a devoted time for the school committee to hear from the community it serves. As such, the protocol supports the unidirectional public sharing of public comments rather than bidirectional conversation. Before we go to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will ask each member if they have any comments, questions, or motions that they would like to make. I will go through the members for additional comments or questions if time allows. Please hold off on speaking until your name is called, and remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair and take care not to interrupt anyone who is speaking. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Before we move to the first item on the agenda, roll call to come to order. Natasha?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Maro?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
And I'm yes. Okay, are there citizens' comments?
No, I have not received any emails.
Okay. Brian, is there urgent business?
No, not tonight.
Okay, student representative report. Making sure I'm not missing
I
anything.
think you need to unmute Liam now.
Hello, I'm Liam.
Hi.
I'm a student representative. My colleague Rachel will not be joining us tonight. She's attending the Maynard girls soccer senior night.
Oh,
But anyways, I could probably handle it. It's been a low-key few weeks. It's been very relaxed few weeks in Maynard, not a lot to bring up. We've had a lot of sports games, as you've probably seen. But we had lots of attendance at those games with good school spirit. Radio shows for WAVM started this week, and we've received several positive messages from members of the community about that. Additionally, jazz band was performed at Maynard Fest this past weekend, which was another highlight for our students, especially in the band community, because they have a new teacher this year, and that was their first time performing with them. We don't have a lot of concerns, but most of them follow the same train as last meeting, which are the lunches, which have been just very unreliable quality, as we've said. Additionally, Whitson's often will run out of like some of their lunches, like of the variety. So when the last students get to the front of the line, they'll have like basically like one or two options rather than like a full selection. Additionally, lunches have small portion sizes, which means even if students get a free lunch, they'll be spending money on a second portion so that they can fill themselves up, which has led some students to steal, which this administration is working on. But we think most of the theft is just based on the fact that the portions are very small and students aren't like getting filled up. There's a subcommittee in student council that's going to be meeting with Whitson's and discussing possible solutions to this, so we'll keep you updated. Mostly of our other stuff is just updates and stuff we talked about last meeting. Students really liked the bleacher setup at our last football game. They really enjoyed it, and they liked being on the field, even though that's probably not going to continue. The bleachers are, at least for the students, they really liked the new bleachers. Students are also continuing to adapt to the new administration. We've like received basically no complaints about them in the past couple of weeks. And it seems like they've basically become like resigned and like adapted to the new changes. Looking forward, we're looking forward to homecoming, which, while we don't have a definite date on it yet, is probably gonna be sometime in the month of November. Additionally, there are 3 home games like in a row, like Friday, in the next couple weeks, which everyone's very excited about because there's tailgates, there's school spirit that go into that kind of thing. And finally, we have some Spanish exchange students coming in next week from Spain, which is always really fun because we love just talking to them. They're always very interesting people. They always like have lived different lives than us, and we really enjoy the exchange students. That's it for me. Any questions or concerns?
Thank you for coming. I wasn't here for the last meeting, so it was nice to meet you. So do folks have questions? Natasha?
Thank you for, I'm really glad that you're going to be meeting with Winston, because I want to hear more about this is a change, this is a new vendor. And so it's really important that we're getting this feedback. I've heard also separately, but also related, that there's been some questions about vegetarian options or the lack of good vegetarian options available for students. So I don't know if that's going to be part of the conversations that you're able to have with them, but I think that would be really, really helpful to hear as well. And I don't know how we would want to, can we get updates? I'd really like to hear the feedback once you meet with them, what they're providing to you as suggestions, or how we can advocate on our end, how we can help support those efforts in some capacity.
We'll be sure to keep you updated. I know vegetarian options were a concern that we talked about last meeting, and they continue to be a concern. A lot of times the vegetarian option for the main meal will just be like the main meal without the meat, which is not a lot of protein, not great for your nutritionally.
Yeah,
So
I think
that's
the example that I'd heard from a couple people, like sometimes there's salads, but they have like chicken on them. And so, even a vegetarian can't get just a garden salad because they have to pick off, meat or something to that effect. So that's just for you. I'm sure the students have similar feedback along those lines. But if we're putting if they're spending a lot of money on, because I know, meat itself is, is a little more pricey, maybe we need to be looking at expanding more vegetarian options, if that seems to be what a lot of feedback is. So can you keep us updated and also let us know how we can help in that effort?
Yes, I can.
And I'm excited to hear that the homecoming is coming up. So that's very, very, very exciting for you all. So good luck.
Brian?
Thank you. I just want to let you know that I'm glad you're talking to Whitson's. We talked to Sue Mitchell-Tang, the general manager, and she's really excited to meet with the students and problem solve the food issues, whether it's around portion control or options. So I just wanted to let you know she is really open to that and excited to start that conversation.
That's great. And maybe at some point, Brian, because I know this is our first year going back to Winston, we can get maybe a presentation at the school committee after some feedback, some changes maybe on how that is and is not working. I don't like to hear more monitoring during the year if we can about this.
Yep, absolutely. I'm sure they'll be glad to do that.
Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, Liam, your ears must have been burning because you were an integral part of the workshop that we just had. So we're trying to figure out how we can come to you guys and have those regular meetings that we are scheduling. So really looking forward to coming meeting with you, with your group. And the other piece is that on the wellness committee, there's always a representative from the food service. So again, it'll be another way for us to keep on top of the comments that you're making. So thank you for that.
Great point, Mary.
Elizabeth?
I'll just say, yeah, thank you, Leah. We appreciate that you're very candid and you give some real information that can help us. And just could you repeat real quick, when is your meeting with Woodson?
I don't think it's scheduled yet.
Okay.
It's a subcommittee of student council, and I'm not on the subcommittee. I could email you once we get a date if you wanted to know.
Oh, that's okay. Just as long as we know, I just want to know when to ask you about it again.
Yeah, I'll probably have an update at least like maybe 2 meetings from now, maybe next meeting. We'll see.
Okay, great. And it's just the students. There's no teachers or anything on it.
I think it's just the students.
Okay.
As I've said, I'm not on the subcommittee today, so I'm not really like 100% on it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. So we did at our meeting we were just we were talking about how to best work with you guys. And one of the things we were talking about was seeing about getting your feedback on agenda items. And maybe we can talk after or about the best way to get your insight and feedback on agenda items without you having to sit through long meetings. Like to basically be more helpful to you, but without taking up too much of your time and making extra work for you.
Yeah, like basically you look at the agenda ahead of time and then you can say, potentially we put them out a few days before the meeting. So then even bringing it back to the council and saying, these are the things the school committee is talking about this week. Is there anything that we can add to this conversation? And then just front loading our meetings with your feedback on those things, if you have any, is something we were thinking about.
I really like that idea. I know a lot of students are really interested in what happens at these meetings. They're just kind of, it's hard to attend, it's late, and it's also, they take a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that's a great idea from you guys.
Yeah.
So if you want to start doing that even for the next meeting, that would be great.
I could definitely do that because our student council meetings actually happen like Thursday mornings. So it's like almost like we're perfect timing.
Yeah, that'd be great. We
Yeah.
definitely have the agendas by Tuesday. They're required to be ready by Tuesday. We're often ready before that, but
Maybe
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe Colleen could send you the agenda.
Yeah.
If that's
And
okay to put you and Rachel on the agenda on the receipt.
And they're also on the town site. So if you can't get them an email, then they're on the town site every time after Tuesday.
Great.
And alongside that, if there's anything that you already are doing, if there's anything along that we should be thinking about, like we're hoping that you can talk more about blank in the future, then we would love to hear things like that from you too.
Definitely.
We have a list of agenda topics throughout the school year. So even if there's something that you think would be helpful for us to talk about in the future, we can add it later to plan ahead for that. And if you have questions, if you look at the agenda and have questions beforehand, we can talk too.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Have a great night, folks.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
You
too.
too.
Okay, Brian, the superintendent's report.
Oh,
Mauro.
Oh, sorry, Mauro.
Mara
It's
had a
okay.
question.
I don't have a question. I'm just letting you all know that I'm going to the senior night and then I'm coming back. So I'm leaving right now and then I'll be back in a half an hour to 45 minutes. So,
Sounds good.
Thank you.
One.
Colleen, do you want me to actually sign off?
You can if you want, and then just sign back in when you come in. You should be
Okay.
able to. It's up to you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, Brian?
Thank you. So it's a pretty short agenda. We've met a lot in the last couple of weeks, but we have some important business tonight, some exciting important business, which is why we have James Trudeau. You can see him with some fancy headphones with us tonight, high school teacher. He's really going to lead the discussion around the trip to Quebec and what's been done and why we want to do it and what the process will be and the specifics about that trip. He's well versed in this, having done it before, and we're excited to really get back to some field trips that kids are excited about. So James, I did see you, but now that we've changed screens, I don't. But are you unmute? Can you unmute or be unmuted?
There we
you
are.
go.
Yes, now
You're on.
I'm here. Yes. I have a screen. If I could share it, if you don't mind. It's probably that same information that you just saw briefly.
Elaine's doing her magic.
You should be
yes,
good.
you will be able to share.
Okay. Here we are. All right. Can you see that?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Glad to be able to talk to you again. It was less than a year when I proposed this last. So I think most people were here for the last proposal, but so I'll try to keep it brief. The proposed trip would be in February of 2023. It's a Friday through a Monday. It's a 4-day trip, 3 nights. It's a linguistic and cultural trip. And it would be a group of approximately 20 students. That's my estimate at this point. 2 chaperones. So it's one chaperone per 10 students. That's the regulation. And the cost is there. I've added in $114 trip insurance, which I contacted our rep about. So that would allow anyone to cancel for any reason. And I think that's a good investment. If the trip is approved, and I hope that it is, I would require that as participation, just because, you know, there could be an element of you know, the unknown element could still be there, but hopefully a lot less than the previous years. And that cost includes transportation, lodging, 2 meals per day, and activity fees. So the trip, it would happen during the opening weekend of the Carnaval d'Hiver, which is a famous celebration in Quebec City. And there's plenty of activities. I'll show you some pictures, and I have an itinerary that we can look at if you're interested in that, or I could just kind of describe some of the activities that they propose. But the other good information is that Canada has just lifted all of the border restrictions. So there's no COVID test necessary. There's no proof of vaccination necessary. And I just confirmed with the rep a couple of days ago that students can still use a birth certificate if they're up to 17 years old. If they're 18, they have to use a passport. And that's only when they're traveling with a school group. So just FYI, if you plan to go there this weekend or whenever, you need a passport except for a school group. So that's some key information. Here's some photos from previous trips. Our tour operator at Jump Street, the one that I prefer, is phenomenal. I've been on this trip twice now with Maynard and Jump Street Tours, and they are absolutely phenomenal. We see these activities here. This one on the right, it's a historical recreation there, and they have the students kind of take the roles of the British and the French during the French and Indian War. We visit a wood sculptor who explains some French Canadian legends there. He sculpted that mural right behind him. We go dog sledding. There's some students with the mascot behind them. That's the mascot of the whole festival, called Bonhomme de Neige. And there it is. We go, there's a visit of a sugar shack, do some traditional dancing, and they eat some traditional French Canadian food there. And there's a whole grounds actually where they do ice sculptures and and all kinds of other things. So that's it in a nutshell. I guess I suppose I'll let you ask questions if you have any.
Thank you. Do people have questions? Natasha?
Thank you very much. Actually, I was going to ask the passport piece because I know right now it's
Mhm.
very delayed in getting, immigration documents, interviews and all that. So I wasn't sure how that aspect might work for students who, would be potentially thinking about the timing
Mhm.
of that.
Yeah,
So
so
that's
they can use birth certificates with a school group. So that's, a good option. Obviously, passport is preferred, but they've confirmed that they can use birth certificates.
okay. If there are students that might not be native to the United States, who might not have
Mhm.
US birth
Right.
certificates, is that, I guess, is there a direction for them to consider? That would be my
Yes.
only, I don't know, you may not have answer now, but
Mhm.
a thought, we
Yeah.
have folks visiting or from
Mhm.
other countries.
Right. I
And
used to work for an airline actually, so I know about this kind of thing. So they would need their passport from their country of citizenship.
okay,
And it really depends on their country of citizenship, whether or not they would need a visa or not. And then you'd also have to take in consideration coming back into the United States. So
right.
that we'd have to look at on a case by case basis.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. And the vaccination requirement. So is it that they don't, I thought non-citizens still needed to be vaccinated to go to, but you're saying that has been recently lifted, that is
Yeah,
no
as of
longer the case.
October
Okay.
1st, they
Oh,
dropped
okay. So
everything.
very,
Yes,
very new. So they don't need to be vaccinated if they're is it that they're coming from the United States, or is it just anywhere, any non-Canadian?
anywhere. Yep, anywhere.
Okay. And there's no particular things with Quebec that might be because different than just the country itself.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
All right. I mean, I know, yeah, we've had this presentation before, so I'm really, really excited to see that this is, coming to fruition. Is this part of that? I know there's that pathway that we had talked about. So is this
yes.
kind of, can you explain a little bit more how this might complement or align with those efforts?
Yes, so this is one possibility in the global scholar pathway. So in this global scholar pathway, there's all different kinds of experiences that students could propose or have count towards that endorsement on their diploma. So this would be one of them. There's also many other ones, as I'm sure you've heard from Jen Adams, who coordinates it, that they don't have to travel in order to get that endorsement, but this is one way that
For me to do it.
they can earn that. Yep.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the
You're
work
welcome.
through all these,
You're welcome. Well,
getting it
luckily
to
I've
this
done this.
point.
This is my third time doing this trip, second time with Maynard. So I don't want to say it's muscle memory at this point, but I know my contact at the tour operator. I know the procedures. So I'm lucky that I've
Sounds like
done
all
it
the due
before.
diligence that you got this goes. So I'm really excited for you and the students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, thank you very much, James. I'm really excited about this
You're
too. Do you have the 20 students now, or is it going to be a first come, first serve, or how does that work?
Well, we could do more. If we get more than 20, that it's a possibility. So I don't have any official numbers yet. I wanted to go through this first.
Yeah.
But just by talking with students, I would imagine it would be about 20. So
Excellent. And is there a third person in the wings for the chaperone if you get over that 20?
there
I
could
bet.
be. Yeah, it's 2 per 10. So I don't know if it's like we have to reach 30 in order to have 3 or exactly what. I mean, I would be perfectly comfortable with 2 chaperones and 25, honestly, but yeah, we could if need be. Absolutely.
And of course, the ultimate question about when the Disney presentation was brought to us, they had the plan about what if one
Yeah.
of the chaperones gets sick?
The what
or
if.
What if one of the kids gets sick
Mhm.
and how did they get home? And do they have to quarantine up there for 5, that whole scenario. So I'm
Right.
sure I saw that there's the 24/7, doctor on call, but it doesn't
Yep.
quite answer that.
Right. So there's no restrictions, that are written now, which is interesting. I think that common sense would prevail. If someone is obviously very sick, I would look into first, trying to get that student probably in a separate hotel room, that way that can be arranged on the spot, I'm sure, with the tour company. And then if that person's really not well, then we could arrange somehow, right, to have their parent either meet us at the border or somehow one of the chaperones take the kid halfway back or something like that. So
Okay, all right. Thank
good,
you.
but it's only 4 days, so
Right.
yeah. Yes,
All right, thank you. Thank you for your
You're welcome.
persistence with this trip too.
You're
Really
welcome.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was kind of my question too. If do you have a chaperone that would be comfortable, wearing a mask and driving a kid to the border to meet a parent who can't cross the border to pick up their kid?
Yeah, absolutely.
know,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah. And Montreal's not that far from the border, actually. It's about an hour and a half. So it's not, if someone had to do that, then, the tour guide would be there and the other chaperone would be with them. So it's not, and that person would only miss maybe half a day. So it wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Excellent.
Hopefully that doesn't happen.
Natasha, can you take over for a minute? The baby's crying.
Oh, okay. Because Maro's not here, right? Oh, okay. All righty. Beth, did you have any questions?
No, I think you covered it. So thank you for asking all the good questions, and thanks, James, for coming back again. I'm
You're
excited
welcome.
to see you again and potentially have a better answer for you this time.
Thank you.
I had one more question, more budgetary. So I know there's and this might be more of a Brian or a Wayne question as well. So in the event there are hardships for students who would otherwise be eligible to go, is funding for this one of those revolver accounts? Would that be applicable in those instances? I don't know if James that has been talked about in the planning.
Yeah,
But
I don't know about that, honestly, because this is an optional trip. So
okay.
I mean, we try our best to have as many students who want to go. Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer to that.
Do you have fundraising? Any fundraising?
We can do fundraising. Yep. We absolutely can to lower the cost. Yep.
So really, if the idea is if you have more students interested, it would lower the cost
That's correct. Right.
per
This cost,
student.
this cost is based on 20. So if we get 30, then it will go down by a few $100s.
And I guess the reason why I was thinking is one, just from an equity perspective, but also as we're considering the pathways, the global pathways, if this is an option, I just want to make sure that people don't, or students feel like they're not able to do certain global pathways that do allow for travel to count towards their academic, even though it's optional, but we're saying that it is something that we would count towards, that they miss an opportunity if it's solely based on a hardship. And so that's where I just, maybe for a future conversation, we could, hear, how that might be mitigated.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Brian?
Yeah, actually, if you,
Make a
since there's
motion.
still a quorum, if one of the school committee could make a motion and take a vote on this, that
Oh,
would
yeah, we
allow
need
James
that's
to move
right.
on.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Quebec trip for, what were the dates? I don't know if we need them or not.
February 3rd through February 6th.
There you go.
2023.
Yep.
I second. Any discussion? All right, Mary Branley,
Yes.
Elizabeth Albota,
Yes.
and then that's it, just us three, right?
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I'm a
Hillary
yes.
Griffin. Okay. Okay. All right. And Natasha Rivera, I'm a yes. Motion
Thank you very
passed.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Congratulations, James. You're
Thank
welcome to
you.
stay, by all means. You can,
But you don't have to.
but you don't have to.
Okay.
Just
I'm
letting you
gonna
know.
go. I'm gonna go, but thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening. Thanks.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
Absolutely.
All right, Hillary, Brian, all you.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So MCAS, we don't have our standard presentation tonight, just some updates from the state, if you will. It's been unembargoed. The data is out there. So just to really go over, oh, Colleen on the ball, look at that. Some of the broad issues throughout the state that have been talked about over the last couple of months, quite frankly, are open responses, attendance, and student stamina. And so, as you know, just sort of high level, in 2020, there were no tests. And in 2021, it was half administered in grades 3 through 8, administered in grade 10. And in 2022, it was fully administered. There were still significant loss across the board. There were a few glimmers where in some places there were slight increases. But overall, ELA, for example, really significantly lower writing scores and some early literacy challenges across the state. And we were no exception to that. In many, many cases between 19 and 2021, 2022, there were double-digit losses,
Wow.
especially in grades 3 through 8. That was very, very common. So we had meetings with the assistant commissioner about this prior to it becoming unembargoed. And, you know, they were pretty clear that a significant issue had to do with attendance overall, not just in any one particular place, but across the state, that on average, students missed 11 days in 2021 and 15 days in 2022. 18% of all students missed 18 or more days in 2021, and 28% of students missed 18 or more days in 2022. So that chronic absenteeism, just due to COVID, you know, if you got sick, you were out for 5 days. And many kids got that twice. So that would have been 10 days, which is really, that's pretty unusual for students to miss that much school on any given year, even if you get a cold. So that level of just missing school, the thinking is that had significant impact on MCAS testing, and in particular in stamina. A lot of the kids just didn't, you know, that was the thinking, that they didn't have the stamina to run through the test in, you know, with fidelity. It was a big challenge for them. And one of the other key things that the assistant commissioner talked about was really using, not spending time comparing the loss, like it's documented all over. You can identify which grade and what loss, you know, whether it was grade 5 or grade 8, et cetera. But really using 2022 as a baseline and looking at the kids in front of us here and now this year and saying, okay, so this is what we have. And that's what we're doing, is really looking at the 2022 data to identify the needs of the kids in front of us to say, how do we address that? So that's kind of high level, both from the state and local, what we're doing in Maynard. And in the next, I believe Chuck's on the call, at the next meeting in a couple of weeks, we'll go through and really talk through and explain the Maynard data in detail. But I felt like it came out recently. I wanted to give you sort of a high level overview of what the state has been saying, both before it became unembargoed and currently.
Ryan, can I ask
Thank you.
just a part of that presentation, when it does come back to the school committee, the attendance piece, if that could just be a little bit more like where we are currently in the year? I know that there's been a lot of that conversation of just still absenteeism is even now. So if you could add that into like, okay, this is what we know, but like, and this is as a litmus, like where we are, you know, from a data perspective for this year so far, average, like for student absentees. So if we're seeing improvement, or if we're still, you know, not, or going in the other direction.
In terms of attendance, absolutely, we can
Yeah.
include that.
Does the data show the same trend as previously, where the at-risk kids or the more vulnerable kids show the more significant losses?
I would say yes. We'll go into that in more detail, and then specifically the subgroups by race and ethnicity were hit hardest, if you will, with the learning loss. That was a big challenge, which I don't think that's, unfortunately, I don't think that's a big surprise to anybody. As you asked, like, is that sort of the continuation of what we've seen in the past? And given the absenteeism and the lack of stamina and et cetera, it hit those groups exceptionally hard. So we have some work to do in front of us.
Yeah.
Any other questions for now?
Not now.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next slide, Colleen. I know you're there. Well, as you know, the Community Preservation Committee, we submitted 2 NOIs and they voted, they met last night. And they, just by their rules, they can't fund improvements. So that was a no, which was okay. We still put the ask out there, and they did approve having the new bleacher NOI move forward. So that doesn't guarantee us anything at this time, but it does say, you know, we've done the ask and they were interested. They gave us some recommendations in terms of language that's very specific in terms of what needs, how we phrase what we are asking for and what they can and can't fund. So they gave us some clear directions with a yes to move forward. And I think some of you were probably at that meeting. I know Mary was at the meeting.
Yeah, myself and Justine St. John too, which was great from Select
Good.
Board. So they really appreciate it. And what they actually said is that we are eligible to move forward. So we meet the initial criteria under the recreation. So, but there's
For the replace, right? For the
replacement.
For the replace, right. And it was interesting that, and I give Lindy Gare a lot of credit because she had done some research, and the number of towns that have used 100% CPC money for significant money for that. So that was also good feedback. And she sent information, Brian. I don't know. Do you want me to? I'll forward it to you and to Mike Aria.
Sure.
About the different places, because they did speak about specific language, and they said if we went to, there were 5 that Lindy sent, specific language on gearing us toward getting it approved. So I will forward those.
Mary, would you be able to share that also?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I would love to hear. I think as the conversations, it might be helpful to reference, especially if someone's already done some of that work. That's really amazing that she's done that.
Yeah, it was really helpful. So
did they give any indication about how much money is available?
No, but the conversation came up. Is this okay, Brian? Because
I think you probably know a little more than I know, just
well,
based
no,
on
that's
the
okay.
conversation.
I didn't know if this was the place. I was going to say it at the end, but I guess if we're having this conversation, so
you could do it now.
One of the conversations was about bonding, because it's been presented to them to maybe bond the bleachers, and so one of the conversations was how far down the road they are with the Maynard golf course, because that's bonded, and they it's about from what they said, it's about 2/3 of the way through the life cycle there, to the tune of $130,000 a year is what they're paying. So it sounded like that was a possibility to go that.
And that's better, because I know that in our last budget subcommittee, that seemed like it was maybe not something they would entertain. So that's promising.
Yeah. I think it would also help us to have all the different, the Recreation Commission, have a number of letters from the whole town, from the different segments to say how important it is too, but that's for future conversation.
Perfect. Yep, we can definitely do that. Some other follow-ups in terms of Maynard Fest. We had a great presence there. Several of the administrators were there all day. Kids were also there, and it was just really good to be present. I personally was not present, unfortunately. I didn't know about that event and had out-of-town plans. A couple of us did actually, but there was good representation from administration and kids, and all the feedback was very positive. So it's good, sort of just another example of being back in regular times, part of events, and celebrating, and just it was good. Solar power credits, I know I'm still waiting to hear back. Greg as well. We had some meetings, and I think somebody had asked on the school committee about solar power and
I did,
specifically
yeah.
Select. And we're still really, the ball's in their court waiting to hear back from them. Haven't heard anything to the contrary. So as soon as I hear, I will definitely update, and I'll push a little. I have a meeting with Greg tomorrow to see if he can get an answer from Select just in terms of where we at with that. We had a good, I mean, I will say the initial meeting was very positive, and it took into account sort of all the discussions of the prior plans. Beth Greenblatt was there. So it felt like that has the potential to move forward at the high school and at the Fowler School, but I'll definitely get a more specific update on that with
Yeah, I
plans
think
and times.
the reason why, Brian, I had thought about it was because they are at the town, the select board, they're also speaking about entering into agreement with other vendors to contract, I forget what it's called, but basically to contract for electricity costs. And so because it's all electricity related, I just want to make sure that they complement align with each other, that, you know, that effort in doing some town-wide agreement would not impair any type of credit or something that we would, you know, we're anticipating to benefit from with a solar project, because it seemed like it was going to be town-wide agreement for all that.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, Greg invited Wayne, Bob Savoy, and myself to that initial meeting with that company. And as you, I'm just drawing a blank on the name, but they were, I think the agreement at the end of the meeting was they agreed to have them do an assessment of the town. So I think it's in concert with the solar, it's not in competition, but I will definitely get an update and clarify for the committee.
Thank you.
Absolutely. MSBA, which I know is a little bit later, but we can do it now. I mean, it's exciting. Some of the most, I know we have one more meeting, at least with the security advisory group, which is really helpful. That has the police, the fire, our custodial representation, etc. And most recently, there's a meeting with the food service. So we talked about food service a lot. He has a meeting, Chris from MVG has a meeting set up with Whitson's, and he also has a meeting set up with most of the staff from Green Meadow, and another meeting in particular with Adam Steiner, our tech director. So those meetings are sort of coming, and we're building on that. And
Brian, can I ask
Yeah.
a question about that? That you said that you talked about the culinary. So are they advising from the culinary space? Is that what it is? That Winston's is looking at what the layout would be for like for
a working kitchen.
Food service, like working
Yes.
kitchen, and so they're the ones who we are using to inform, like setup for, or helping inform the layout and use for that space. Is there any other party that we would, or is it, I think, a third party? Because I know that they're kind of agreement with us, but they may not, you know, in forever. Like, is there any other place that we want, you know, if we wanted to do like a standalone, like at some point, if we ever did standalone and not contract, would the kitchen, you know, support like that effort as well? I don't know. I'm just wanting to.
No, it's a totally fair question. I think Chris, and my sense of, and Mary, chime in by all means, but I think, you know, Chris and Phil have done this many a times. So I think they're used to getting this feedback. And I think they build it. My sense from all the meetings that they really build it in such a way that there's flexibility at the end of the project. So when you have it, and if Whitson's were to come up with something that he'd never heard before, I'm very confident Chris would be like, wait a minute, we've never done that before. And we've done a lot of buildings.
Got it.
Yep. And then I mentioned this, I think last week, but I didn't have the date down. October 13th, there's a small group headed to Harvard, Mass to see their school at the recommendation of MSBA. They just finished their elementary school, which is actually a pre-K through 5. And they were, I would say, fortunate in that they were able to get in sort of the building and finish the project prior to the pandemic. So their pricing was kind of pre-COVID pricing. So just to keep that in mind. And I don't actually, off the top of my head, know their pricing or anything like that, or the cost of that project, but it's a new building. It's in line with what we're doing. They have a similar, or still have a similar push toward sustainability as well. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of pieces they were able to build into that building. And I'll be able to, I know Rob's going Anybody else wants to join, they're welcome to join. It's on the 13th. It's all morning, it's like 8 to 12. Sort of a presentation and see what's happening with that building. And we'll be able to update after that. So exciting, more exciting. And where's the,
Great. Mary, do you go on those site visits too?
I have on
Or
the other two, and I'm gonna see. I would love to, Brian. I wasn't sure if that was an okay thing or if they.
yeah, I'll put out
Just
the email. If you want to
checking.
come, let me know and
Yeah,
just tell them
I
you're coming if you
think
want.
I would very much like to, because I know you've talked about the Harvard one a number of times as being a good place for us to go. So
and I've
Put it
heard
on
of
your-
it too, because I would like to go too. It's just close by, it's not super far. So if you're not in Mary, if you're not able to go or what, I just want to, get some eyes on some of the places that are being looked at in comparison. That would just exciting stuff. I don't know if we can get, I don't know, I know we can't do like video, but if there's any like things we can share, to get the folks community like looking at what you all are seeing on these site visits. I think that would be really helpful, like to see it in a finished version versus rendering sometimes.
Mhm.
I think
we
that would
could-
be cool.
Yeah, and I'll ask Chris about video of that building. I mean, obviously not with kids, not videos of
Yeah, but like
kids in there,
before,
but just-
like these are some examples of places that we're looking at, that
Yep.
the community
ask
could
him.
really put some vision to what it is that's being discussed.
so
And he probably has that, maybe not for this particular building, because I don't think they were the architects on this project.
the Good Now building, Natasha, in Marlboro, the first one that we looked at, the principal put together a great video. She was so excited about it. And that was the first, before we even went to check out that building. So that's if anybody just wants to take a look at the video that she did, it was pretty incredible.
I would love, yeah, no, I think that would be
Yeah, it's
amazing.
right on their website. So the Good Now Elementary School in Marlboro, which was the first one that we visited.
I'll make a note to myself right now.
I'm
Thank you,
making a
Mary.
note as well. And
Um,
I believe, go ahead, sorry. I
No,
was gonna say,
that's
I believe that, no, I believe that's it for me at this point. And we already covered the MSBA update, so we're good.
Okay, for policies, I was kind of hoping Mara would do this, but for the wellness policy, I wasn't at the meeting where it was talked about last. There had been, I know there was discussion about what?
I was there.
I was there too.
Yeah. So, sorry, I said, what did I say?
I'm very pleased to see this one.
Yeah. So this policy is back to the original version, which is the policy that was written by the Wellness Committee. I think that it could go either way, and the incentive for doing it the way that was presented last time was just to be consistent with other policies. And this is consistent with all the work that the Wellness Committee put into it all year and what was reviewed by Desi. And we're back to this one.
How is it more consistent? Can you remind us of why that makes it more consistent if we did it the other way?
In general, the policies and procedures are general overview policies from the school committee, and then more specific detailed procedures that the administration creates.
Right.
And it was thought that this policy gets into more detail, like a procedure. And so we considered using the more general policy for mask and then using the Wellness Committee's policy as the procedure. But that's really the only benefit of doing it that way. And so this is what the Wellness Committee worked on for a year and worked really hard on and did a great job at, and that Desi has vetted. So we're back to this way. If there are any questions, Mary and Charles probably have the answers more than Mara or I, but we did review it, and everything is consistent with what we believe that the school committee would expect. Mary?
I just had a comment that I feel like there's more meat in it by having the whole thing, the whole 10 pages be the policy versus sometimes the procedures. It's a big ask, and there's things that Whitson's has to do. There's things, but it's pretty comprehensive, and it's something to strive for versus if it was a procedures, background piece and then the policy. So I'm very excited to see it this way.
Yeah. And I think that the policies are more public. Like we discuss them in the school committee meetings. They're published on the website with other policies. So if someone has a question, it's more easily found.
I think also I think it would, how I interpret it, it's okay for this one to be different because it had a different level of vetting that was required. And so I would think it should be different, right? Because Desi, looked over it. And I think, the rationale, just the formatting piece didn't seem like, enough to like all that work to really change to abide by formatting, because really anything in the procedure, we don't have overview or purview over, right? So if something were to get moved there, that could be changed at some point and we would really not maybe have awareness to that. So I think this kind of keeps it under the school committee purview for that regard. And I really, really appreciate all of the wellness committee's work and doing it. And I'm glad that we're able to see it brought forward in the way that it is. It looks like it would be rescinding, right? We're going to rescinding and then adopting. I think it's was it 5:30 we would be rescinding that policy and then adopting this one. Is that right, Colleen?
5:30 was already rescinded.
Oh,
because we do have, oh wait, no, you're right. I'm thinking of another policy on this agenda.
okay. No. I need
You are
someone
correct.
to do it. I need a sanity check too. That's why I wanted to make sure. So we would be rescinding 5:30 in the same breath of adopting this new one. And then the only other, thank you for clarifying, only other thought was, Beth, you had a question on a certain part of it. And I don't know if you maybe, I didn't understand what it was question about, but
because I'm on the PDF right now. I'm trying to find where I had when I put
it had the highlighted part was as staff members and
I'm
Maynard
going,
Public.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Just a
Okay. I didn't know.
second. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there was nothing we have to think about more there with the staff members in the Maynard Public Schools are encouraged to model healthy eating habits as well as exercise and physical activity behaviors. I just want to make sure that that wasn't anything that we have to be worried about, that we're making them beholden to something that we're not foreseeing, because it sounds nice. That was all my.
That part did make me nervous, thinking
it made me-
what exactly are we expecting, and is that something we're allowed to expect?
Right. I was a little, I was like, what do you want me to do? Maybe I was eating lunch when I was eating it, when I was watching it. And I was like, oh my gosh, does my ramen that I'm eating right now, does that pass muster? I don't know. So I think that's what I was thinking as I highlighted that.
That's a good question. Cause I guess it's just an expectation to model. So what does that mean, right? Is that how is that meaningful in execution?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if Mary or whoever was working on this, if they had some more
Charles.
or
Like
Charles,
insight,
was that
what were you
part of like
thinking?
Desi's like requirement to put that language in? Because I'm just that's actually a good point, Beth.
They were pretty specific. I don't think the intention is to take that goal and all of a sudden say, anything specific. Again, a lot of this is just things to strive for, but not necessarily. I mean, it's not going to be part of their evaluation or anything like that. It's just more thought-provoking is the way that I think of it. But Charles, you go.
Yeah, sure. Mary's right. Absolutely something definitely to strive for, and we're not going to be able to do everything all in 1 year, as Mary always reminds us. Although our goals are very lofty, this year we're embarking on the implementation phase. Again, working with Desi, and it is very difficult. If I could just give you a couple of quick examples. One of the things is nutrition education, and we want to examine that our students are receiving sequential nutritional education that aligns with our state and national standards, so that, for instance, we'll be examining when students learn how to read labels, how to plan healthy meals, that sort of thing. There is there is actually that sentence that staff members should model good healthy habits. Again, something to strive for. We're not going to be penalizing people. We're not at 100% of implementation of the areas which include not only nutrition education, but the school meals that talked about in the standards. the competitive foods and beverages, we're under obligation to make sure what's served after school and during school meets standards. One of the areas of great concern that we're trying to improve is our physical education and activity to make sure that the minutes correspond to what's recommended. And we've also mentioned promotion and marketing. So this year we're embarking as one of the goals of the Wellness Committee as examining our implementation, seeing where we are and where areas where we need to grow. But we're not going to be perfect. It's nice to strive for perfection, however. And I hope that answers the question.
Brian, or Charles, did this policy go to the attorneys?
That would be Brian that could answer that.
Oh, it went through, I mean, it came from DESI, so we did not send it. We can, but we sort of felt like it came from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
I'm not saying we need to. I was just thinking if they had seen it, they'd be okay with it not like being an expectation from staff.
Okay, if I could just say something, we're meeting next week, and we want to be. We have a subcommittee of one of our goals is to work on the implementation. So the sooner, it's kind of hard to work on an implementation of the policy that hasn't been adopted. So I would really think it would be so helpful to us if the policy was adopted.
I'd like to make a motion if that's okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I will make a motion that we rescind policy 530 and adopt school committee policy ADF wellness policy.
I'll
Second.
second. Oh, go ahead.
Discussion? Okay, roll call vote to approve. Natasha?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
And I am a yes.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
All right.
Charles, thank you.
Yeah.
So
Thanks a lot.
Cal spearheaded it.
Oh,
look,
we've got,
and I
we
love
do have a lot of
Charles'
work.
like
do
saying
have-
like, look, ladies, get your act together and do this tonight. Thank you very much for that so gentle nudge that you do so well.
I'm sorry for that last like month of hiccups there.
Okay.
Now it's all back to you, Charles.
Yeah, I just, I wanted to make one sideline comment that I happened to see, I guess on one of the s'mores or something from Fowler. I didn't realize the fact that after lunch, I think it is, that they have the kids all walk around the building. I
Yeah.
mean, that's like phenomenal. The
Yeah.
fact that we just do something like that the kids are getting out and they're getting exercise and that. So I actually complimented Principal Bath on that exercise. So.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so policy DN, Brian created that one. Do you want to go over it at all, Brian?
Sure. So we have, as every school system does, whether it's textbooks or just furniture, property, but it was been purchased with taxpayer dollars. So we need a policy to, when it's needs to be disposed of, we've gotten new textbooks, whatever the case may be. So the policy, and truth be told, we looked at Mass General Law, which said, you need a policy that didn't just, so we looked at around at existing school systems that had policies. And I worked with Wayne on this and Colleen, and we came up with the disposal of school property policy, which the nice thing is, if you, and I'm sure you've already seen it, but it sort of comes back to, we go through these steps, offering it to people locally for free, etc. And then if you notice, before we dispose of anything, it comes back to the school committee for a vote of approval. So there's really an opportunity, just sort of checks and balances on both sides. And it would allow us, like right now, we have materials at the high school that are waiting for the next step, but without a policy, we didn't want to make a move with that.
Can I ask I don't know if this would be a good time to ask questions, Hillary?
Yeah, I might mute myself like, if you want to like pass off questions to anybody else after.
Okay. Brian, thank you very much for that. And just kind of add to the context of why this is one that, needed to be brought forward. Because I know we don't have one currently. So it's great that we're putting that. My question is specific about the value of less than $10,000. So how is that assess, like, because we're talking about getting rid of older stuff, so is it like market value, or how is that really determined before to know that this would be, you know, like the books, like talking about books, for example, are you looking at what we spent on those books initially, and because obviously their value would fade over time, so I'm just wondering how we get to that number to know that this would be what exercise you need to do, or is that something that procurement law cited, and is that, do
Yeah.
they have like a formula, like they, like, is it, 'cause I know a lot of times it's market value, you know, is language, like, because
Right,
there
no, it's
is,
a good
you know,
question. Wayne, I know he's here because we talked about that actually, because we didn't want to put into the policy an overly complicated process to identify
right,
how much
Oh.
things would cost at this time. Look at poor Wayne, he's eating dinner.
I know it really. Puffy shows up.
sorry.
But he's there. We talked about that. He knew I was gonna like reach out on
And this is exactly, yeah,
disposal.
right when he's putting the food in his mouth, it's just like, budget question. Yeah. And I guess the other part to that would be disposing, you know, if there's money to be made off of the disposal, like if it's sailing or whatever, is that money that would we have as a school committee, do we need to accept those funds, or how to, like, that's the part I'm not really, you know, that circle process.
Yeah, we would, I don't think there's a whole lot of market for, in terms of getting revenue back for these types of used books and the things that we're talking about. But if we were, we would treat it like any other revenue that we would get. We would realize that we would come to you, the school committee, and say, you know, we sold X number of books, and we realized $1,500 in revenue. We ask your permission to accept it. And then we would put it into something that would be, first you have to put it in a revolving fund and put it in something that would benefit everybody. So like, say, student fee, for example. But we would come back to you, the school committee. In terms of determining value, that's always dicey. We use the dollar amount of around 10,000 because when I surveyed my colleagues on the DOE website for policies, that was the dollar amount that obviously other school committees felt comfortable with before, you know, if you went over that threshold, that it would require a little more scrutiny. So that's how we came up with that. We didn't, you know, we kind of surveyed the other districts, and that was kind of the consensus number that other people used.
Okay. And I guess to thank you for that. Will there be a dedicated line, like, to accept, like, so if there's money to be made off of whatever is being disposed, that where those monies would automatically be allocated, or is that something that, I guess that process I would want to get a little more clarification. So if there's like the town, and I just maybe am thinking about recycle conversations, because they've been talking about recycling, and they have commodities, like certain commodities that things are recycled, they can get, you know, money for, or not, that offsets the expense of it. So I didn't know if there was money to be made off of whether it's recycling or however you dispose of it. Is there a dedicated line that you would be creating that would be automatically going to track like what we're getting from disposal of equipment?
Currently, there isn't. If like I said, if there is a market for it, which I haven't seen, and my colleagues for the most part haven't seen, they end up giving them to someone. If they do, it's there, you know, there's not an exchange for funds. But if that happens, yeah, I could create a line to say, you know, sold book fund in a revolving account to you know, to track that revenue.
Okay. And I guess the only other thing was, I know the town there's things that have to get voted at the town for disposing, and it's like larger equipment. But I don't know if there's some other stipulation to think about, like where a certain dollar amount or value then would become like mandatory to bring to a lot like the town to dispose of. I don't know what triggers that, but I know they've done like old cars or things through the years that it have to go to town votes. And my only, I guess, thought would be just to make sure that it just aligns with whatever Greg as I think because the DPW does a lot of old equipment, things like that. How do we make sure that we are just in line with the town's process as well of what that is?
Well, I think when Brian and I first got here, I think there was an old van or an old truck or something that we had to dispose of. It was at its end of its life. We
Right.
did, I have a pretty good line of communication with Justin DeMarco, and we worked with him in terms of turning it in and getting rid of it in a responsible and proper way so that it doesn't have oil that leaks in the environment and those types of things. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we did do what you said. We worked with the town in terms of how to dispose of that vehicle.
Okay. All right. No, that's really it. Thank you very much for working on this. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Mary?
Does it also include computers? Or is that one of the items that so it'll be.
Yeah, it
both?
could be.
Yeah.
We would work
okay.
with Adam on that. I mean, Wayne and I
Okay.
would work with Adam on that
Okay,
in
all right.
particular.
And I know this is a long shot, but they just talked this morning about how the Florida schools are all decimated in that. So there might be more of a demand right now for the resale than there would be normally, but that would be a good thing. But yeah, that was my only other comment.
Thank
In
you.
Puerto Rico too.
In Puerto Rico also, yeah.
Do we want to expand the language? I'm sorry. Just the equipment, because there's outdated textbook and instructional materials. Is that something you want to make an instructional equipment? Maybe because I think material. I'm always thinking like curriculum, but I think Mary made a good point. Like we're talking about could be equipment too, right? Up to.
I think on the bottom part of the policy addresses equipment and furniture. The top part.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Oh, so the top part is not a summary. Okay, maybe I read it wrong. Sorry.
No, I
So-
did the same thing. When I first
That's
looked
good.
at it, it breaks up kind of textbooks and instructional materials, and then below is equipment and furniture.
So, Brian, I had thought that the computers were going to be handled separately with a policy with Adam. It sounds sort of like if we applied computers to this, they wouldn't be able to be sold to the graduating students. That wouldn't meet this hierarchy. How would we handle that?
We can hold computers out and come up with a separate policy if you want for simply computers. I mean, it may look very similar, but we can do it. We can just, it doesn't mention them specifically. We can work with Adam to get a specific policy.
Mhm. I just don't want to, if historically this children have been able to buy their computer they've been using, I wouldn't want this policy to prevent them from being able to do that.
Agreed.
Has that been the case? Have they been able to do that in the past?
Yeah.
And that's Chromebooks they're buying or actual computers?
I think the Chromebooks are the tablets.
Okay.
Would you want to just add a sentence into this to account for that instead of doing another policy? Or is it easier for you to do another policy for his computer specifically?
No, we can wait and I'll just bring it back to Adam and have him take a look at it.
Okay.
It might be that just under that equipment and furniture, you just add, because one more sentence like priority to, to resale or whatever, however it is to in-district students. I don't know, be given, first thing. I don't know. Maybe that might be an easier way to kind of
That's,
emphasize that.
mhm.
So this is
Or
just,
if we go with a separate policy for computers, I don't know which way we want to go. If we did under that equipment or furniture, we would just say excluding computers.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
particularly like student computers.
This was a
Alright.
first read, so I can
Yeah.
certainly add to it and bring it back next time with the, the amendment for student computers. And we can vote on it next time. I think that's
Okay.
fine.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the public comment policy is a little bit confusing because there was Maynard's policies. Mask had BEDH and BEDHE. We had guidelines in our agendas. So there's a lot of information, different places. Some of the policies referred to sign-up instructions that would be provided, but we haven't really given sign-up instructions in the way the policy was intended. So I was trying to make things more streamlined and consistent so that if we get questioned on our public comment policy, we can have one policy to provide that says, this is our public comment policy. I wanted it to account for both remote comments and in-person comments. Because going forward, regardless of what we do right now, there's always the opportunity, like the chance that we would have to make changes later and to make the policy work. So that was sort of the incentive for combining them. I went through a whole bunch of other towns' policies to see what things they had in their policies that weren't in the generic mask ones, to see if anything was helpful. Some of the things were definitely things we wouldn't want to add, that were sketchy or probably not appropriate or could cause problems. But then some of the things seemed helpful. So some edits came from those policies. And then there were two things that I talked to Tracy that I cared about personally, and I talked to Tracy about. One is, I know personally I used to be concerned about giving my address during public comments. And I know other people have expressed concern about that. And there was a belief that that was a requirement. There's actually no requirement for public comments to provide an address. She suggested that at times providing your town can be helpful. Some of the other policies included a hierarchy for if there were more than 15 minutes worth of comments, how the potential speakers would be prioritized. So it would be students from the schools, teacher from the schools, parents of students, community members. It would give a hierarchy. And so knowing that town could be helpful with that. I was thinking even if we don't include that hierarchy for public comments, having the town could be helpful because it can give us a little bit of a context for what is being shared. So I was okay with that piece, but I thought that if it's not a requirement and people are uncomfortable giving the address and we don't really benefit from hearing people's addresses, that would be a worthwhile edit. And then I had heard over the past couple of years that when the public comments are referred to as citizens' comments, that makes people who aren't citizens feel like they're not welcome to participate or feel uncomfortable participating. And I know that no one has expressed that in Maynard, but it's a really easy change to change the wording from like citizens comment to public comment or community member, or just reword the sentences to not say citizens comments. Because we're not intentionally trying to limit speakers to citizens. Like that's not our intention. And if our word choice is indicating that, I didn't think we needed to do that. And Tracy had said that that's something that's been coming up with other towns and other districts in an attempt to be more inclusive. So that was the other change that I made. So that's kind of a lot. Do people have questions?
So it looks like, just to make sure I understand what we're looking to rescind the current BDH and BDHE, and then the revised one is the combining of those with that commentary that you were saying about there. Yeah, because I was looking at it just to to see. And because I remember when we did BDH, that was informed, that was after a lot of those public comment judiciary rulings, I think with like, it was at Newton or something. And I think town or school council, school council had weighed in because there was that language about violence or the First Amendment, what you can and cannot shut down. So I like the idea of combining it because some of it was redundant a little bit, and I think it eliminates that confusion if it's all in one place. I like that idea a lot, and the idea of adding noting it as public comments, and then also on our agendas. I think thinking about that is changing it to public comments, so it just aligns with that that language. If we're saying it's a public comment, and then our agenda should probably say public comments. All the time. So
the other thing is the BEDH, the -E is exhibit, and so in theory our sign up instructions could be the exhibit. And after we talk about the policy, I thought we could talk about the sign up process too and what people are comfortable with. But Mary, I saw you raise your hand too.
Yeah, no, I had one question about it. In one of them, it said the public comment time would be 15 minutes, and then the other one said up to 15 minutes. I guess I'm just thinking that sometimes we don't have any comments. So does that mean that we have to sit and twiddle our thumbs for 15 minutes waiting, and just in case? So I like the idea of having up to 15 minutes because because it also says that we can extend it if which we've done in the past, if there's a lot of that's up to our discretion. So but that was my only comment. Otherwise I thought it was really well done.
I just edited that in your other grammar edits, and Colleen's edit.
Yeah, just a couple.
Elizabeth?
I think it looks really good. And I also was thinking, slightly off topic, that whatever changes we make here, we have to make changes to the thing you read at the beginning for any.
Yes.
So as soon as we change this, we have to also change that.
Also, we need to make the instructions for the sign up.
Yes.
Before actually voting on this as well.
Okay.
Although we had this very similar policy and procedure in place when we were following the current method in the meetings. For the sign up instructions, I was thinking of something really, some of the other towns did either a Google form that went live on the school's website at the same time that the agenda was posted, or 48 hours before the meeting. A Google form would go live, and you could enter your name and the topic that you were planning to talk about at the meeting. And then other districts had an email address where you would email and say you wanted to sign up to speak at public comments. And then some of them for in-person meetings had an actual sign up sheet, like a printout that just said name and topic. So I didn't know what people thought. In theory, I would like one that works for both, but the online methods, the schools that did a Google form or an email required them to be submitted either like half an hour before the meeting began, or 5 minutes before the meeting began. It had some cutoff time that you'd have to sign up to speak by before the meeting. And in-person meetings, I assume you just take the sheet when the meeting's about to start, and so there's a little more flexibility there. You also, with in-person meetings, it'd be a sign-up sheet that you'd have to be there, say you'd have to be there ahead of time before the meeting started, and you couldn't sign up more ahead of time. Sorry, that didn't really make sense. But say you knew you were going to come to a meeting, you might miss 7 o'clock. If you can sign up at any point in the 48 hours before the meeting, you have more flexibility than if you need to get to the meeting before 7 o'clock in person. So I wasn't sure what people thought about a sign-up method.
I would not be in favor of anything that adds more burden on someone to prepare, because I just think particularly for parents, sometimes you may not know until the day of if you're going to be available to go to a meeting. And if there is, you may work really hard because there's something of importance that you want. And then, to find out like, oh, I was supposed to register if I wanted to say something, I would feel like that seems very, administratively unnecessary, just if someone has gone through that, just knowing our community, the families that we have. So I don't know if I like the idea that they have to sign up in advance in order to have a public comment. Maybe it would be something where they have to, I don't know. I don't know yet
Yeah.
what that would be, but
Okay.
I would understand, what are we trying to achieve with the
So-
sign up, I guess, is also
Well,
what I
so
would
first of
wanna-
all, our policy has actually been you need to sign up ahead of time.
Right. But I was
for
thinking
over a
that
year.
would come out.
Um,
Yeah, though. That was the only
Okay,
thing.
so I think that was added in because all of the like Mask added that in, and all of the
Yeah.
every district I looked at has some form of a sign up required. I've heard a whole bunch of reasons why that was important, and I can't really. I'm not sure I'll get them right if I try to share them right now. I think it was to sort of prevent. I'm not sure. Actually.
No, and I know the select board, like an example, I know I've gone to select board meetings, I've given, like, they have a sign up sheet, but it's not really like, people can sign up or don't. I don't think it's like vetted, like, did you sign up, otherwise you can't speak. So that's what I don't want it to come off as, like, you didn't sign up, so now we're not gonna, let you speak at public comment. So it would be something that, would they be able to, like, if it's a remote meeting or a hybrid, that they would be able to raise their hand, and that would be what I would hope to see, is that someone
Okay.
could raise their hand and speak at some point, maybe even if they didn't sign up, but have the opportunity because maybe they heard something or something within the 24 hours that they really wanted to give a comment on. How do we make sure that that's allowed?
We didn't talk about that or consider that because literally every school I looked at requires sign up. So I probably wouldn't be ready to like move forward with this in 2 weeks and change the public comment procedure if we didn't want to do the sign up, because that's how I've been thinking about it. And how, Mask suggested it and how everybody's doing it successfully. So if we wanted to like be unique, that would make me a little bit uncomfortable. What are other people's thoughts?
My thoughts are, I think that if we have a Google form where people can sign up and it's open until the meeting starts, then potentially that mitigates some of what Natasha's talking about, and it allows us to have that sign up that doesn't make us an outlier among other school systems. So maybe something like that is a solution.
Yeah, maybe like Colleen could put it in the chat or something, like, hey, even at the beginning of the meeting, like we put the email address or something, like, if there's something, and people can even do it before you get to
the last
we can
call.
we can get to that before we get to that part in the agenda or something.
Mary?
No, I guess, how do the selectmen do it as far as the hybrid meetings go? I mean, do we take one in-person comment and then take one hybrid, or how do they, how do we?
They do in whoever's there first. They do like whoever's on site.
Okay.
And then they look to the who's on Zoom and whoever's raising their hand. All you need to do is just raise your hand, and give comment that way. And they'll call on whoever's raising their hand. So yeah. So that's where I just why we would need to be. And I get what you're saying. We're the aligning with what other schools are. I'm just wondering if there's another. Just if the argument is really there, why that's really important. I just want to hear that.
I think that, I mean, for me, what I understand, I bet it's part of it is like, if there's a lot of people who want to comment, then that you're up against that and figure out how to plan accordingly for that. And then you kind of also know if there's pretty much nobody coming. And I don't know if people include this in their Google form. But I mean, is there ever included like what they're thinking about commenting on?
Yeah, they require a topic.
Right.
Okay, so
And I believe that is, I believe some of that is to help ensure that they're related to something that's under the school committee purview, or an item on the agenda. And for committees that prioritize certain comments, some of their policies would pick like a for and then an against to try to equally weigh the comments instead of hearing tons of comments for and one against. And then
So they're picking and choosing?
Welcome back.
well, we're not doing that.
No,
But
I'm
some of
just
the
saying,
towns did.
but that's
Yeah.
what they're doing? Okay, I don't agree with that.
But it
So-
could be something like, if it could be something like you were saying, like a hierarchy of like, are there students, are there teachers, are there parents? I think that something like that would be okay. And in that way, choosing could be kind of good. think through.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Lori,
Also,
do you
I'm not
think
sure.
that
I guess the other thing would be, it would be a nice record of what, if we are asking them what topic and, like a general for or against, that's just a nice record for us to understand where the community is falling on it.
Yeah.
And then if there are a lot of comments, and if we are saying in our policy that it's 15 minutes of speaking, then maybe we are figuring out a way with people ahead of time, like, well, we have, 50 people want to comment on this and we only have 15 minutes. So then maybe we have some ways to restructure our meeting so that everybody gets to be heard. So it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like people are being shut out. So I can see a lot of reasons why you might want to have a sign up sheet, so that you
Yeah.
can do it nicely.
And I think even to potentially reach out to somebody, if say you have 30 signups about the bleachers and one person signs up saying they want to talk about, the Global Scholars Program, and we don't get to that comment, somebody could follow up with them and say, I noticed that you had this topic on the agenda. Would you like to speak to so-and-so about it? Or,
Right.
so have some sort of follow-up.
Right.
I think that a lot of these procedures and ideas came about to prevent some of the issues that have happened in some other towns with their meetings. For example, like the Board of Health meeting in Maynard, where there was racist comments just going one after the other after the other. And I think Beverly had a public comment session that got so out of hand the police had to come. And so my sort of takeaway was sort of that Mask was trying to create a system of ensuring everybody gets to have their constitutionally protected speech, and yet the school committee is still able to have a school committee meeting to conduct school committee business as opposed to parent forum. And that it's not really intended for impulsive comments. It's intended for people to speak to the school committee. I actually hadn't even thought of it before now because every single one required a sign up, and our current policy required a sign up. So
but we've never done one. I think that was kind of accepted just to, formalize that we had a policy, but we've never had a sign up before. And I just, and I don't disagree with it. So I'm not like, I just, when I think of someone giving public comment, I think it's someone who's passionate about a particular topic. And I think about our audience who are people who have kids, primarily. And I don't like to create any barriers for them to be able to share whatever it is that is important to them, that they feel like because some administrative step wasn't done, that they, that we didn't have in place before, that now we're implementing now, not because of anything that has happened. It's just arbitrarily implementing it. That would inform us to do that. So that's I would like to be able to react to something. Like if it happens, and yes, like let's go back and we need to, but we haven't seen that happening at the select board meeting, and they've been pretty, pretty open to having public comments. Even the ones we have now, I mean, people, I think a lot of the frustration is because they haven't been able to speak. They've been, putting it in writing. I'm hoping that this, gives people an opportunity to feel like they can be heard a little bit more. And I don't want to create obstacles to like, okay, we're going to do this, but now you have to do this instead. It feels a little bit like, and I'm just trying to reconcile that in my mind. How do we achieve something to look like where we want to hear your feedback without making it feel like you have to do these 3 steps before at this certain time, or your public comment can be heard.
So how about what we said so far? Does it solve that for you? Like if it is up until the time when people can comment, and if it is for these reasons, does that feel like it solves that problem yet?
So I guess if we're saying that the majority would like a sign up sheet in some capacity, I think it would have to be like, what are we looking to achieve from that sign up, right? And so it doesn't feel like it's arbitrary. I don't know if I really, for me personally, if it really matters someone indicating what it is they're going to comment on, because ultimately even though we can give guidance on what the comment should be, we should not be excluding the comment, even if they want to talk about, the sign at the front of the school that's not related on the agenda. or whatever, but I mean, like, there's very clear things that
Well, there are times that we would stop comments on things that aren't within the school committee purview. I
no.
think, yeah, so the examples have been if a parent wants to criticize another student, like we won't allow one parent to talk about another parent's child.
They're
That's
very
not constitutionally
clear.
protected.
No, actually, so I think this is the
No.
part that it gets very clear when we went through school council, is that it had to be that you can give warnings, but it has to be something of like something that's going to provoke a violent reaction. So again, if that's what your rationale is based on,
Yeah.
because it is going to provoke or causes a disruption of peace or incites lawlessness, or like to those, or obscenity.
Actually, can also be if it's not within the school committee purview.
No, you
It
can't.
is.
You
That's in
cannot
this. You can read the decision from the Superior Court. It was clear that, and that's why Basque
you can't
included that in their
shut
example
off
policies.
public comments for that. You
You
cannot.
can.
Okay, so I would want to get clarification then, because I know that the policy that we created, it had those very clear criteria, because they could come in, the example was they could come in and talk about, a teacher, and we can't, turn that off. So, we don't get a lot of people giving public comment, like, again, outside of our purview anyway. So I don't know why to focus so much on that. People like bleachers, that'd be up for discussion, but
So I don't
I
think
don't
we
know.
would stop comments about bleachers that aren't within our purview, but I think that, Natick school committee members were sued personally for having a policy and implementing a policy that violated the Constitution. And so I think it's important that we have a policy that's very clear about what we can and can't do, to ensure that if we're like, none of us are gonna, in the middle of a school committee meeting, go read the Superior Court decision outlining what's allowed and what isn't, but we will be familiar with our policy. So I'd really like our policy to be clear about what we can and can't do, so that we don't accidentally, like, I last read the Superior Court decision, in July, and I read it a lot over the last 4 years, but I wouldn't want to go off my recollection on a small detail right now. Where if we have this printed and it's accessible and stuff, I'd rather have that information to know it's clear here. I think that sorry, I forgot what else I was going to say, but yeah,
Can I just jump in and say I don't think it would be okay. I think we do have to say we will shut off people who will say things about teachers or kids. Like, I think that is a pretty clear line. But that's, we can't get into that. We can't get into people slandering teachers, and that's not a thing that we're gonna have happen, or admin. I think that has to be a pretty clear line. And I don't think our line can't be if it's gonna incite violence. That would be us doing the work of figuring out, like, how violent is that person in the community they just insulted. And I don't want to do the work of that. I don't think we should do the work of that. I think it has to be.
That is just language that was informed.
One second. I just mean that I think that we have an anti-bullying policy in our schools, and I think we follow something very similar in our meetings. So I think that is important, that we do hold the line like that.
I don't think we can make up our own lines. Like, they're actually allowed to bully us and bully Brian.
Right.
So legally,
not the teachers and not the kids,
yeah,
and not the
teachers
principals
and kids
not
are off
the-
limits.
Yes, right.
The guidelines from, like, that I read from lawyers and from the Superior Court were very clear that Brian and us are fair game.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
So I know the policy that we had last, the BDH, that one was vetted by school council after the ruling. And I know in that particular section 3, because there's that's where that language is all, because it did get edited significantly, because our old policy was like the more like the Natick one.
It was exactly the same as the Natick one.
Huh?
It was exactly the same word for word
Right,
as the
right.
Natick
And
one.
that's why it kind of was like, we need to, update it now. So the way, I guess, this is where, I guess, that language that school council, from my recollection, and if it's different now, then that's, good to know, that comments regarding school personnel apart from the superintendent or students are generally prohibited unless those comments and complaints concern matters within the scope of the school committee authority. So there is a stipulation. I don't know what that might be. It could be safety. I have no idea, but there is some stipulation that school council said that there is a provision where, yes, something might be allowed to be shared. And then And then it says the other part too, which we talked about, the like the scope that the speakers we've allowed are wait, where was it about that the topics, hold on, I just was looking at it. The chair after a warning. Speaker will be up to 3 minutes. Wording topics for discussion should be limited to those within, but it wasn't must, it was should be. So it wasn't required, but it was, you know, again, it was giving guidance that they should be limited within within the scope of the school committee's authority. So I just wanted, if we're saying that it must be limited, then I'd want to understand if that's legally allowed, if we can say it has to be, or we could turn someone's comment off. That would be something I'd like to get, and also the other, anything that's changing number 3 in some context.
Brian?
I was gonna say, great conversation. There seems to be a lot of agreement. Why don't I take what you have, the one that's in there, send it to council, have her weigh in on that. So the next time we can finish this conversation.
That would be great.
Do you want to take some questions with it? There's some of the things we were just talking about that we were concerned
Yeah,
about.
why don't does somebody want to just send me a group of those questions? I don't know that I have them all fresh. Will they recorded?
But Hillary, do you have time for that, or should I?
Recorded, yeah.
Sorry, what?
Should we do? Is Colleen doing that? Should one of us do that?
Actually, Charles was saying something.
They're recorded. This is
Yeah.
recorded. Yeah.
Oh, true.
We can get those that way. I can send them. I mean, if there are specific questions that you have, send them to Hillary, or Hillary, you can send them to
Okay.
me. Otherwise, we'll get it from the tape and I'll send it all to school council.
Okay,
Bring it back.
that works.
When do we want to vote on this? By the next meeting?
I mean, there's no urgency with the exception of, you know, people would like to speak out loud.
Right.
And this policy facilitates that
Right.
when we get to that point and we include a mechanism for sign up if chosen.
Mhm.
Are we saying that we're not gonna allow people to, Brian, you still have your hand up. Sorry, I don't know if you had if you left your signal light on. So we're basically, we're until we approve this policy, we're not gonna allow public comments except for email.
I hadn't thought about it. Like that's what I mean, that's how we've been handling public comments for the last like 2.5 years or so. And so when my understanding was when we implemented this policy and vote on it, we obviously would want to follow it.
Yeah.
I don't know about creating if we have our current system and we're going to have a new system at some point in the next few weeks, I don't know that we want to create a third system for the meantime. But
I was just thinking that if we talk about like one of the other future agenda item, like hybrid, you know, how like we probably want to have them aligned a little bit, right? Because if some people are in person, then we need to make sure that the public comment, like they might not be sending an email if they're in person.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I can send to the council and have her revise and make suggestions in the policy for you. Just so you know.
Yeah. Is that our next item on the agenda? Yeah, future meeting format. So if you want to move into future meeting format, we can do that and pick that back up in that topic.
Yeah.
So Maro, do you want to start with the future meeting format and what your thoughts are?
Well, I guess I would like more information about what was purchased and kind of how the whole OWL thing works, if that's what we're using, before I can, because I do really want to get back to in person with, you know, if that means that we're doing some sort of hybrid, that's fine. But you know, I kind of want to know what, you know, what the plan was and what the format will be with whatever was purchased, so that we can then figure out kind of going forward from there.
Colleen?
Okay, so I actually reached out to them today and it's going to be delivered and set up on Wednesday. I'm out on this week on vacation, so we'll probably test it the following week at some smaller meeting. It's basically a big cart. It has a computer, a desktop, let's see, cables. It has a little 55-inch TV on it, microphone, an omnidirectional microphone like the owl. It does not have the owl. High quality webcam.
So it's not the owl system? What is it?
It's not the owl system. It's something that Mark Manasian suggested. And it's an entire cart that can be moved. It's like an all-in-one. It's got the TV on it. It's got a computer on it. You can connect with Zoom or Google Meet and all of that. Now, in a hybrid situation, you need to have a quorum present in person.
Mhm.
So 3 people would have to be present in the Fowler Library.
Where is that requirement?
That's the law
Okay.
under open meeting law for a definition of a hybrid meeting.
Even with these new rules?
Yep.
Okay.
And that goes away in March unless the town votes it in as a possibility or unless it becomes
state
part
does.
of the new open meeting law.
I think the
Yes.
town already voted on a policy before at some point, but it may need to be amended.
I
It
don't
was
know if it
like-
included hybrid. They have to actually vote in to approve it.
Yeah, I think it was like more like remote and, but you needed a reason. Yeah, there was some language, but I can't remember now.
Yeah. I thought the town was requiring the quorum in person, but the state wasn't.
For a hybrid meeting, according to open meeting law, quorum has to be present.
Colleen, can you share where that is? Because I
Yeah,
thought
I'll look
that
it up
was-
tomorrow.
That'd be
It's in
great.
MGL, I believe.
I thought that was what had been the exemption was right now
Yeah.
until March. That's what it will default back to, I think, in after March.
After March.
Yeah.
I can double
I feel
check.
like that what the spiel that's read at the beginning, or the more elaborate spiel that used to be read at the beginning, says suspended the need to have a quorum and the chair present
Yeah.
in person.
Oh, it might have actually. Yeah,
Hmm.
I will confirm that.
So Colleen, so does that mean that the cart needs to be manned by the WAVM kids?
There's training that comes with it, so he'll be back out when I return. And whoever needs to be trained will be trained. I'll be one of them. And I think Mark said, and Brian had talked with Mark, and WAVM would man it because it's part of their Chapter 74 program,
Mhm.
that they have to have so many hours of hands-on.
Okay.
Mary?
Yeah, no, I'm good with I'm thinking, once we get this policy about, public comments solidified, I think that that's a prerequisite of us going back hybrid. The challenge with the WAVM is that asking them to be there as late as we oftentimes are is a challenge. So I think 9 o'clock was there were plenty of comments before from parents saying that we were keeping the kids out too late. So we need to work on that. But
Is there a way to have them man it until 9 and then we just turn it off or something when we go? So it's not, maybe we'll sacrifice some kind of quality, but maybe.
Without the training, without the training, I won't know that answer.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it is recorded. The meetings are recorded, so that would, still fall in play.
Mhm. I'm not actually sure what they would do versus what the device does.
I guess Colleen will know
But
when.
Colleen will probably know after the training. Yeah. And when is the training again?
It's not set up because we haven't received it. I've been going back and forth. The person's going to call me in the morning and he thinks he's going to bring it and set it up on Wednesday. So it'll be the following week when I'm back because I'm out all week.
Okay. So does the training also involve like a sample meeting? It's not just going to be like, here's how you use it, but let's get some people around a table and see what it's like.
I have no idea until I have the training.
Is that what you're thinking though, as the school?
We could use we can do a subcommittee meeting and try it out that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or
It's
just,
supposed to be similar to the owl. Like if we've had experience with the owl, is it?
Supposedly, yes.
Okay.
I don't even mean a subcommittee meeting. I mean just like get some students around a table and just talk about nothing, just to see what it looks like, just a sample. Or
Yeah,
you
we
know,
definitely will test it out.
Okay,
I want to totally vet it before we go live with the school committee
Yeah.
meeting.
right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, watch it back after, like just a 5 minute. I mean, you know. Okay, so what are we thinking of the timeline is then? So Wednesday we get it, then there's training. So like what would be like the soonest we could be hybrid? If we look at
Probably a month
calendar?
from now. Like not the next meeting, but the meeting after.
You
First
think-
one in
does that
November.
seem realistic, Colleen?
Probably. I mean, until I know when he can
Right.
come out for training, I don't have any dates.
Yeah. Well, we're not committing to anything.
I know, I just want to know what to expect next, you know, when to, what happens now. So maybe potentially by October 20th, potentially.
No, the meeting after that.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Natasha?
Is just wondering what the benefit of this over the owl? Was it just more cost prohibitive, or is there functionality that preferred that this will kind of enhance the meetings a little bit better? Oh, Brian, I see you were.
Yeah, so we went with this option because that's really what WAV and Mark in particular recommended. He said this was really has the most versatility, the best quality, and
Okay.
having seen the owl in action at department meetings from the town, it's barely adequate. Like they have trouble hearing us, we have trouble hearing them. It's still a work in progress, and it's been months. So we sort of took the advice of Mark, who's been working with this technology for years.
Yeah. I've
But
used
as
the owl
Colleen-
at a meeting in town and
Okay.
it wasn't great.
Right. So we were trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
And is there a possibility, so that I know this came up maybe at one point, but I'm not hearing it tonight, that we would go maybe at town hall on Thursdays? I thought that was the other option, or because they have the setup for everything there. I know that was mentioned space-wise. Mara, wasn't that something that was offered or an option?
Yeah, I know that before came into play, that we definitely were talking about that. And, you know, I had a little bit of back and forth with Becky. But then this kind of just, I guess, took over.
Because I'm just thinking that, because I know over the summer, right, we have meetings and there's no WAVM available. And so, you know, thinking about this equipment and use, you know, in the absence of WAVM staff, like I want to make sure what's that scenario look like, right? And how we might have a meeting and there's no student, you know, there to conduct it. Is it something that, you know, what would that look like? Or that's not stopping us from having a meeting because we can't have, you know, we don't have someone
No.
operating it.
Personally, I don't feel like there's a huge benefit to remote. Like I feel like what you gain from remote, with the exception of school committee members or staff being remote, is just that people can watch it live as opposed to on a recording. So I don't know that it's that big of a deal. I feel like remote's the worst of both worlds. So I wouldn't have any problem in the summer if there's no just doing old school, record it and post it. Like I don't feel like for me, being remote doesn't help any of the accessibility issues that I find with in-person meetings. And so I don't know like that we need a system that works for everything. Colleen?
The only big drawback, town hall, it's not our space. We do it, there are door locks after a certain period of time where ours will be open the whole meeting time. We can leave our stuff as is and pick up in the next morning and clean up the next morning versus having to collect everything and bring it wherever, you know, store it in the car or whatever. So we have access to copiers. We have access to a lot more options at Fowler.
And when I used to bring my child to meetings, I was a lot more comfortable bringing her to meetings in Fowler than at town hall, because she could sit in the back and look at books or do homework on the iPad or watch a movie on the iPad, where I always felt like And I don't know how many people are planning to bring their kids to school committee meetings, but I was a lot more comfortable doing that in the library than at town hall.
I think one of the considerations is, as we talk about climate and what happens at school committee meetings, is that, town hall also allows more support in the building that, we don't have at Fowler. If there are some future topics that we talk about, public comments, those kind of things, we don't have those, other like resources on site here aside that. And so I'm just thinking as another option to consider, like, as we're, it's a tool, it's something to think about. I don't want, to be sitting in a meeting and we're getting, cursed at and, those things that have played out already. And I'm just, I would not have thought about it before COVID, but now I do think about it, and how do we feel being able to conduct business? As you said, there could be kids that might be a Fowler, and what if that plays out? I don't know if maybe the climate or the setting would maybe necessarily occur to the same extent if it was,
Like it could appear more formal.
yeah, or if there was assistance that was needed, it's not something that we have, at Fowler. So,
We can get it at Fowler.
huh?
We can get it at Fowler.
Anyway, I just hope that's not what it just isn't back. Of course, obviously it's in the back. Nobody expects that, but it happens when you least expect it. So
what do we do from here? We just talk about this at each meeting and give an update on who's on the training and where we are in the process. Is that how it goes from here, basically, as we concurrently work on the policy for public comments?
Yeah, it sounds like the goal is for the first meeting in November. So maybe if we can strive for that, but if it doesn't happen, at least, we're working toward it.
Yeah. And Colleen,
and I think
who is being trained, Colleen? Just you, or who else gets trained?
Whoever wants to be. I assume myself because I'm good with technology. I'm at every meeting, but yeah, whoever wants to be.
Would we be trained?
I believe.
Would we be trained in any way?
If you wanted to. Yeah, it's open to anybody.
Okay.
The students, as I understand it, know how to use it because Mark even said, if you need help, I can come over and help you. So he also knows how to use it.
All right. Okay. So you'll tell us when it is in case we want to.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you.
And then we'll get clarification about the open meeting law, like the quorum on site also, right? That'll help inform just to make sure when that starts. Thank you very much. My only thing, just budgetary wise, how much is this overall costing? And that would be helpful to know at some point too. And is there any ongoing cost, software, subscriptions on like Zoom, all those things that maybe we need to be factored in for, an operating budget more long-term versus a short-term basis?
Part costs $3,620. And the Zoom I get reimbursed for every month, $55 a month.
But is that a business account or is that?
It's really expensive. Very expensive for a business account, for an educational account. So I put it on my credit card and I get reimbursed every month.
Oh man.
That.
I wonder if there's like different like functionality. I think there is different functionality with the school one, right? Like we talk about signups and stuff. Like if we're looking to achieve some of that, is that functionality that does exist with the different type of account?
Not on Zoom. Yeah, I've called several times and we're talking about a few $1,000s for an educational account.
Per month?
Oh, no.
I believe, yeah, it was extremely more expensive. I was really shocked. I tried several times trying to finagle something, but.
Could we be a nonprofit?
Schools are nonprofit.
They are.
I know, but like, are there nonprofit accounts as opposed to schools? And
they don't
sign up
have
that
any
way?
option. They have business and they have education.
Oh,
Yeah, there may be another platform out there, very likely, that we can look around.
okay. For chair's report, I don't have that much. I also wanted to say, I saw the principal, high school principal left, but my daughter spent a very long time at Maynard Fest talking to her about the high school, and she did a great job selling it. And I was really impressed with how all the administrators interacted with the kids, particularly having a new principal and a new vice principal. And all the time I was standing near that table, I saw them call out to kids that they knew, and kids were excited and happy to come over and talk to them and share things about life and what they were doing on the weekend. And it was cool to see that rapport already built in a month, and that they seem to really have good interactions with each other. So that was really fun to see. And can move on to subcommittee reports, Mary.
Yeah, so we already talked about the CPC. So and it was more of a question for Brian and for Chuck, I think. So one of the things that I saw, I think it was on the Fowler s'mores, might have been on the high school, is that they've got a Choose MHS presentation at Fowler, and then an open house for the Fowler kids at the high school. Can you just give an idea of what that's all about? I love it. I love the fact that we're doing it in October to, again, student retention, but I didn't know if you could share how that's going to work. Is it going to be for parents? Is it going to be for the kids? Is it going to be on Zoom like we've done the last couple of years? Is it going to be in person?
So I do know that the open house involves hands-on activities, because they told my daughter that at Maynard Fest. So it must be in person and has activities.
Okay, and so it's for the kids then, or because we need to sell the parents as much as we do the kids.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Brian, Chuck?
I don't want to speak out of turn. I read about it but I just don't remember off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me, but I can get it to you tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you. And that was it. Yeah, but I'm thrilled that they're doing it also.
Could that also get shared on all the town Facebook pages to appeal to the kids who aren't current students? Like on the Real Housewives and Maynard Friends and Family and Everything Maynard and all those pages?
Good
Do you have
idea.
access to them? I don't.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, maybe we could share it.
Yep, I'll send you what I have.
Great, thank you.
Natasha?
Oh, I just actually wanted to thank, yesterday there was Principal Barth actually showed at he attended the CPAC board meeting. It was really nice that he were able to drop in. And so that was, well, yeah, they're doing some outreach planning for getting the winter social back, and some talking about how we, can be more present. I think Green Meadow in particular, how we can engage those families a little bit more, because that's really where they are most needed. And so good conversations. The school committee, I sent an email, Hillary, to you and Brian, but I know that the CPAC was looking to get on the agenda for one of the November meetings, I think. Was it this? Remember what date it was, to do a presentation for the school committee. So that is something that was also discussed. And
I didn't add it. I didn't email back, but I did add it to the rolling and email back.
okay, no worries. I just to let also everybody else know that that is something that will be expected. So that will be on November 17th. And just looking forward to just putting in line some presenters for the community along those lines. And I think, personnel, we just scheduled our first personnel negotiation in a couple of weeks. So that will be coming up, and to kick off the year. And then budget wise, I think we've talked a lot about budget. We have a meeting next week. So that will be, Colleen, so are you, since you're not going to be,
I need the agenda by 10 a.m.
yeah, so, but also to start the meeting, how do you wanna
I can
put me
I
as
can
host, or, yeah,
I can
just the
arrange that
host?
to happen.
Okay, all right, that was the only thing I wanted to ask, since you weren't gonna be there, if we could do the hosting part. Okay. And I think that's it. Just I really appreciate all the effort for the. I heard a lot of great things about representation from the schools, from other areas around town too, how impressed they were. So Brian, kudos to all the leadership and staff who were able to participate and I think it was actually looking at all the department. I guess it had really strong overall town presence, which was really great. So I just think it's really, really exciting stuff to have. So looking forward to that. And that's it. That's all I got.
Elizabeth?
We have a strategy subcommittee meeting coming up on Tuesday. Colleen, that's right? I don't see it on the calendar yet, but it is all set for 4 o'clock on Tuesday.
Yeah, it should be all set.
Okay, so we have our first one on Tuesday. I met with the HRC interim chair, which is Elliot, over a couple weekends ago, and we talked about goals for the year, which he's trying to solidify at this moment. So hopefully at the next meeting that he has for the HRC, there'll be some discussion about what goal they have for the year. That's what I have. It was great to be at Maynard Fest. I also talked to the high school, both Ms. York and Ms. Doktorov, and they were awesome, and they had a great setup, and I also saw, like Hillary said, students interacting with them, and it was great. So I'm so glad they were there. Didn't get to see Chuck there, but I did get to see them, and that was really awesome. So thanks for having that too.
Maro?
I don't have a whole lot. I went to the senior night at the varsity soccer game, which was great. They, brought all the seniors for the varsity team and with their parents, and got pictures taken. And then I think they're probably still at their pizza party at the high school, which I'm sure they're having a fantastic time. And I also went to Maynard Fest, was there for many, many hours, trying to track down all of my wayward children here, there, and everywhere, all around. So got to see a lot of stuff going on, alpacas and, Maynard people, and then of course the school tents, which was great to see them. And then just my last thing, I know that there are a number of students, foreign exchange students that are still looking for host families. If anybody at all is interested in hosting for a short while or a long while, we're in great need of some host families that can take some students. So if anybody can do that, and let the high school know, that would be really fantastic. And that's all I've got. Thanks.
How long are these exchange students here for?
Well, there's some that are coming next week, and they'll be here for 10 days. And then there's another student that's here for the year, but if you could only do a month, we're looking for like a welcome host family right now. So that's kind of where we're at with the one that's already here. So
thank you.
Yep.
For the minutes, are people good with the edits that are added, or is there discussion?
No, I'm good.
Him too.
Okay. So without objection, I move to approve the minutes from 6/16/22 and 5/26/22.
With edit.
With edits,
With edit.
sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. And then which warrants, Colleen?
It is Warrants 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 18. We skipped 17 because 18 was that single bill.
Mhm. Okay. So without objection, I move to approve warrants 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 18. Okay, great.
Can I just have a question about or just maybe a comment? I know Mary and we talked about in some budget subcommittee, just how we can, just as another reminder to the committee about getting your approvals into, I don't know if it would be helpful, maybe we put like a reminder on the Sunday night or just so we're, they're not waiting on us Monday to send it over. So just wanted to put another plug out there to see if we can get some, or if there's a different way we can do it, or I don't know that there is single signature option. I know we don't do that, but if, if it becomes a little bit problematic, we might want to consider, a single signer if it, is impeding their ability to get the warrants in time. That's it.
I've been distracted lately, but I can do a better job about approving them.
Oh, I was
Thursday
actually
and
thinking,
Friday.
I put like a thing on my calendar, like I put it Monday morning, but I do look at it, but sometimes I don't respond to the approve. So I don't know if it'd be helpful, like to put like a, a reminder in everyone's calendar, just so, because the weekend can get away. Like this weekend, we have a long weekend coming up too. And so, Tuesday will probably be quicker that it needs to get over because they lose a day. So anyway, just wanted to put it out there. It's for everybody. We all, myself included.
Well, is there a way that maybe we could, if the central office could send out just a reminder, like, before they take off on Friday, say, I still need one signature, or I still need two signatures, or whatever. And that way we'd know if,
We should all be looking at them regardless. I think that's.
no, I agree, but, I'm just saying.
I don't want to put any more
effort.
effort on them doing that work. I want to put it on us that we, our work that we have to just, do better. And we're all, it is what it is. We got all the stuff going on. So I just wanted to put a plug in because recently it was something that came up again. So.
Yeah.
It's actually good that Jane is putting them out on Thursday, because I find myself accepting it on Thursday when I'm looking at the other things for the meeting. So on those weeks, it seems like it's pretty easy, because really, do you have a question? But yeah.
Agreed.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, discussion and roll call. Natasha,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
and Mauro,
yes.
and I'm a yes.
All right.
All right. Happy
Good night,
Indigenous
everybody.
Peoples Day
Night.
and
All right, good night.
Shauna Tobin.